For centuries, the story of Greenland was written in ink that seemed impossible to erase. It was a clean, linear account etched into the collective memory of the world. The narrative was simple: two distinct groups, two separate paths, and a history that felt entirely settled. On one side, the Norse Vikings, arriving with their ships and their iron, carving out a foothold in the unforgiving Arctic frost. Their presence was a saga of ambition and eventual, quiet disappearance. On the other side, the Inuit people, the enduring inhabitants whose roots stretched back through the generations, a constant presence. For historians, this was the complete picture. The timeline was locked, the players were identified, the chapters were closed. We believed we knew who walked these frozen shores and who left their mark upon the land. But history is rarely a static thing. Beneath the permafrost, the real story was waiting to be unearthed. The Norse arrived in longships, cutting through the North Atlantic with iron resolve. They brought cattle, timber, and the architecture of their homeland to a landscape that demanded total surrender. For a time, they thrived. They built stone walls against the gale and carved hearths into the earth. But the Arctic was not a static backdrop. It was a living, freezing machine. Year by year, the growing seasons shortened. The sea ice pushed further south, choking the trade routes that kept their fragile society tethered to Europe. The soil, once yielding, turned to permafrost, locking the nutrients away. They tried to pivot, shifting their diet to the sea, but the cold deepened, turning their fields into barren tundra. The wind became a constant, high-pitched scream against their doors. Supplies dwindled. The livestock died in the stalls. One by one, the fires in the hearths flickered out, leaving only cold ash. There was no grand battle, no sudden catastrophe, just the slow, grinding pressure of a climate that refused to accommodate them. They retreated into their homes, then into the silence of the landscape itself. By the time the last ship failed to return, the settlements were already becoming part of the geography. The ice reclaimed the stone, the snow buried the ruins, and the Norse vanished. But the story we told ourselves was a fiction, a fragile construct built on the surface of a much deeper, hidden reality. The silence of the ice was not a void, it was a vault. And now, that vault is being forced open. The tools of modern science have arrived, and they do not care for the narratives of the past. They do not respect the boundaries we drew between the Norse and the Inuit. With the precision of a scalpel, ancient DNA analysis has cut through the layers of our collective assumptions, exposing a history that is far more chaotic and far more crowded. The neat, linear progression of settlement and succession has been dismantled. The evidence is not in the sagas or the ruins, but in the microscopic traces left behind in the permafrost. These genetic markers are speaking, and they are telling a story of repeated arrivals, of distinct populations that surged into the Arctic and then vanished without a trace. The foundation of our understanding has been compromised. Every assumption we held about who lived here and who left their mark is now under scrutiny. The past is no longer a settled matter. It is a shifting, complex landscape, and the truth we thought we knew has been utterly shattered by the relentless, cold precision of the data. The truth was never lost. It was merely held in a deep, frozen stasis. For millennia, the permafrost acted as a perfect, indifferent archive, locking away the biological remnants of those who walked the Arctic long before the modern era. Now, the tools of the geneticist have breached that vault. The process begins in the field, where researchers drill deep into the hardened earth, extracting cores of ice and soil that have not seen the sun for thousands of years. These samples are then transported to high-security laboratories, where the environment is stripped of all outside contamination. Inside, the work is slow and meticulous. Scientists use chemical reagents to isolate microscopic fragments of DNA from degraded bone and hair, pulling genetic blueprints out of the silence. It is a transition from the physical to the digital. The raw, frozen matter is converted into complex sequences of code, a process that strips away the myth and leaves only the hard, undeniable data. Every strand of DNA acts as a witness, a biological record that refuses to be ignored. As the sequencing machines hum, the ancient past begins to resolve into clarity. The ice is no longer just a barrier. It is a source of evidence, revealing a history that was never written down. The data does not lie. As the sequences align, the screen glows with the truth of 1,000 years. We expected a simple binary, the Norse and the Inuit. We were wrong. The genetic map reveals a far more crowded history, a series of arrivals and departures etched into the permafrost. The evidence is undeniable. Greenland was not a land of two peoples, but a stage for at least 5 distinct waves of human settlement. 5 times, groups arrived. 5 times, they carved out a life against the ice. And 5 times, the narrative shifted. This is not a story of a single, continuous occupation, but a tumultuous saga of migration. These were not mere cultural shifts. They were separate, independent arrivals. Each group navigating the harsh Arctic frontier before vanishing into the silence of the Earth. The scale of this discovery is staggering. It forces us to discard the comfortable linear timeline we once held as absolute. These were not merely different cultural groups. They were genetically distinct populations, each carrying the signature of a unique evolutionary path. When we look at the genetic markers, we see the echoes of separate worlds. One group arrived with the biological legacy of the high Arctic, while another carried the deep, ancient traces of inland continental migrations. They were strangers to one another, separated by thousands of years and vast, unforgiving distances. Each wave represented a different experiment in survival. A distinct group of humans who navigated the Bering Land Bridge or crossed the open sea, driven by forces we can only infer from the silence of their remains. They did not just arrive. They brought with them the accumulated adaptations of their ancestors, forged in climates and landscapes entirely different from the frozen expanse of Greenland. The diversity is staggering. We are seeing the convergence of disparate human journeys, each group arriving with its own language, its own tools, and its own way of perceiving the world. To trace their DNA is to map the movement of humanity across the planet, a testament to the relentless drive to explore and inhabit the most challenging corners of the Earth. It is a profound realization. The island was a crucible for these varied human experiences, but the data carries a darker weight. As we trace these distinct populations, the map hits a wall. The vast majority of these groups left behind no living descendants. Their bloodlines did not flow into the present. They stopped. This is not merely the end of a culture or a shift in power. It is the absolute cessation of a genetic lineage. When we sequence the remains, we find no match in any modern population. They are biological dead ends. Their stories, their struggles, and their very existence were effectively pruned from the tree of humanity. Imagine the scale of that loss. Thousands of years of adaptation, of survival against the impossible, of individual lives lived in the shadow of the ice, and then nothing. No children to carry the markers of their ancestors. No genetic echo in the people walking the earth today. They are ghosts in the machine of history, their presence erased as if they never stood on the frozen ground at all. This is the chilling reality beneath the science. An entire history of human endeavor that has been completely, irrevocably deleted. We are not just looking at migrations. We are looking at the silent, absolute extinction of distinct human chapters. The ice did not just preserve them. It became their final, solitary monument, holding the only evidence that they were ever here at all. The human genetic tapestry is a record of connection, a woven history of survival passed from generation to generation. But for these lost populations, the threads were cut. Their stories were not merely forgotten. They were effectively erased from the biological narrative of humanity. When we examine the genetic data, we find no continuity, no bridge to the present. The tapestry is incomplete, marked by jagged gaps where entire chapters of human experience have been pulled away. What remains is not a living lineage, but a series of faint, isolated echoes trapped within the frozen earth. The permafrost acted as a cold, silent vault, shielding the molecular evidence of their existence from the decay of time. These genetic signatures are the only remnants of their presence. Microscopic fragments locked in the ice that tell us they were here, even if they left no descendants to carry their names forward. Every sequence we recover is a ghost, a fleeting signal from a people who vanished without a trace in the modern world. The erasure is absolute, leaving behind only the silent, frozen testimony of their struggle. But science does not stop at the silence of the ice. It begins to listen. The turning point arrives with the recovery of a single, remarkably preserved human genome, buried for 4 millennia. This is not a vague trace or a fragmented signal. It is a complete, legible blueprint of a life lived long before the Norse arrived. Scientists extract the sample from the deep permafrost, where the constant, biting cold has locked the molecular structure in place. Under the lens of modern sequencing, the ancient strands of DNA begin to yield their secrets. This is the moment the narrative shifts from speculation to hard, undeniable evidence. We are no longer looking at the void of extinction, but at the precise biological data of a person who walked this land thousands of years ago. The extraction process is meticulous, a slow, deliberate peeling back of layers of time. Every base pair read is a step toward reconstruction, a way to pull a forgotten individual out of the frozen dark. This 4,000-year-old genome acts as a bridge, a singular, powerful anchor point that forces us to re-examine everything we thought we knew about the island's past. It is the first thread of a new, complex story, waiting to be pulled, promising to reveal a history far more dynamic than the simple, linear accounts of the past. The investigation has officially begun, and the ice is finally starting to speak. The data stream flickers across the monitors, a digital translation of 4 millennia of silence. Researchers scan the genetic markers, expecting to see the familiar signatures of North American Arctic populations. Instead, the results point thousands of miles away. The markers align with ancient groups from Siberia. The room goes quiet. This is not a local migration. It is a transcontinental journey of staggering proportions. The map in their minds shifts instantly. To reach Greenland from Siberia, these people had to traverse the Bering Land Bridge, a massive frozen corridor that once connected 2 worlds. This discovery shatters the established timeline of Arctic settlement. It forces a total reassessment of how humanity moved across the top of the globe. The genetic evidence is absolute. It demands a new history, one that ignores modern borders and looks instead to the ancient, shifting geography of the Bering Strait. The narrative of Greenland is being rewritten, one base pair at a time. Imagine the scale of that movement. It was not a single expedition, but a slow, relentless push across the top of the world. These travelers moved through a landscape of shifting ice and endless, biting winds. They navigated the Bering Land Bridge, a vast, frozen expanse that existed only for a heartbeat in geological time. Every step was a battle against the cold, a constant struggle to find food in a barren white void. They carried their lives on their backs, moving in small, tight-knit groups, following the migration of game that kept them alive. The sheer physical toll of such a journey is difficult to comprehend. They crossed thousands of miles, navigating by the stars and the subtle shifts in the ice. They were masters of a harsh, unforgiving environment, yet they were always moving, always searching for a place to settle. After such a monumental effort, they arrived at the edge of the world only to find a temporary home. The journey was immense, and the final destination was merely a brief, isolated chapter. They lived, they built, and they breathed in the cold air of this island for generations. Then, the silence returned. The most haunting revelation of modern genetics is not that they arrived, but that they left nothing behind. No descendants, no lingering markers in the blood of those who followed. They are a genetic dead end, a chapter of human history that simply closed. When researchers sequence the ancient remains, they find a void where a lineage should be. It is as if they were a flicker of light in the vast Arctic darkness, brilliant for a moment, then extinguished without a trace. Their tools, their hearths, and their songs were swallowed by the permafrost. They exist now only as ghosts in the data, faint signals in the code that tell us they were here, yet confirm they are gone forever. This is the true weight of their story. Their legacy is not found in the living, but in the stillness of the earth that holds their secrets. Then, the ice revealed the Dorset. They were not merely survivors, they were the true masters of the high Arctic. Archaeologists have spent generations unearthing the remnants of their world, finding sites that speak of a people perfectly tuned to the rhythm of the frozen north. They crafted tools with surgical precision, carving bone and stone into implements that allowed them to thrive where others would have perished. Their artistry remains etched into small, intricate figurines' faces and animals captured in ivory, bearing a quiet, haunting beauty that feels startlingly human. These artifacts suggest a culture of deep complexity, a society that understood the nuances of the ice, the migration of the seals, and the shifting patterns of the wind. They built permanent hearths, established hunting camps, and developed a way of life that seemed built to last for eternity. For decades, the sheer volume of their sites led researchers to believe they were the enduring foundation of Arctic life. Their presence felt absolute. Yet, as scientists began to isolate the genetic material from these ancient remains, the narrative of their permanence began to fracture. The sequencing results arrived, and they were absolute. Scientists mapped the ancient genomes, searching for a thread that connected the Dorset to the living, but the search yielded nothing. There were no descendants. Not a single traceable gene from their population exists in any modern human on Earth. This was not a gradual assimilation or a quiet blending into new groups. It was a total, abrupt, demographic extinction. The data paints a stark, chilling picture of a people who occupied the Arctic for centuries, only to vanish entirely from the human bloodline. Their existence ended with a final, silent period. The genetic evidence confirms a complete replacement, a total erasure of their biological legacy. They left behind their stone tools, their ivory carvings, and their hearths, but they left no children to carry their story forward. The lineage that had navigated the ice, survived the winters, and mastered the hunt simply ceased to be. This is the cold, hard reality of their history. They were a genetic dead end, a branch on the human tree that snapped and fell away. The science does not offer a reason for their disappearance, only the undeniable proof that they are gone. The focus shifted from the ancient, vanished Dorset to the well-documented burial sites of the Norse settlers. For centuries, these graves were viewed as isolated pockets of European history, a testament to a people who clung to their origins despite the crushing weight of the Arctic. Archaeologists mapped these sites with precision, cataloging the remains as clear, singular examples of Viking expansion. The narrative was simple: a closed group, a distinct culture, and a linear story of arrival and eventual demise. But when researchers applied the same rigorous DNA sequencing to these remains, the results defied every established historical record. The genetic blueprint did not show a pure, isolated European lineage. Instead, the data revealed a startling, complex reality. Intermingled with the expected European markers were distinct, indigenous genetic signatures DNA that had never been documented in these burial grounds before. The presence of these markers was not a minor anomaly. It was a fundamental contradiction to the history books. These findings forced a complete re-evaluation of the Norse presence in the north. The presence of these indigenous markers within the Norse remains forces a radical departure from the traditional view of isolated, hostile outposts. These are not merely burial sites. They are evidence of a shared existence. The genetic data suggests a period of interaction that history books never recorded. A bridge between two worlds that were supposed to remain separate. Scientists are now piecing together a narrative of exchange, perhaps even intermarriage, that occurred across the frozen landscape. This was not a story of total displacement or solitary survival, but one of contact. The genetic signatures indicate that these groups did not simply exist in proximity. They were part of a dynamic, interconnected social fabric. The lines between the Norse settlers and the local populations blurred, leaving behind a biological record that contradicts the myth of the lone European pioneer. This discovery transforms the landscape from a series of distinct, warring camps into a complex environment of coexistence. Every marker found in the bone fragments tells a story of meetings, of shared hearths, and of a life lived together in the harshest conditions on Earth. The reality is far more intricate than the simple, linear history once taught. The comfortable linear progression of settlement and succession has been completely dismantled. For generations, the story was a simple, predictable path. A single arrival, a struggle, and a final outcome. That model is now obsolete. Science has replaced this tidy timeline with a far more volatile reality. Greenland was not merely populated once or twice. It experienced at least 5 distinct waves of human arrival and subsequent disappearance. These were not just different cultural groups, but genetically unique populations, each with their own trajectory across the ice. Most of these groups left behind no living descendants. Their stories, their struggles, and their very existence were effectively erased from the genetic tapestry of humanity. The history of this land is not a steady climb or a single, tragic end. It is a tumultuous, non-linear saga of repeated migrations, intense adaptations, and sudden, inexplicable vanishings. The past is a complex, shifting landscape of arrivals and departures. The ice was never just a barrier. It was a vault. For thousands of years, the permafrost acted as a silent, unyielding guardian, locking away the physical remnants of these vanished lives. Every layer of snow that fell, every shift in the glacier, added to the weight of this frozen archive. It compressed the past into the earth, shielding bone, tool, and genetic signature from the decay of time. While civilizations rose and fell elsewhere, the ice held its breath, preserving the truth in a deep, absolute stillness. It did not judge the stories it kept, it simply endured. The cold was the only constant, a temperature that halted the natural cycle of decomposition and kept the secrets intact. When scientists drill into the core today, they are not just pulling up samples of ice. They are unlocking a physical memory that has been waiting in the dark. The silence of the landscape is the silence of a witness that has seen everything and said nothing until now. We are finally reading the ledger that the ice has kept since the first migration arrived on these shores. It is a testament to a scale of time that dwarfs human memory. The work of the laboratory is now the work of the historian. Meticulous sequencing of ancient genomes has turned the page on a narrative that stood unchallenged for centuries. We are no longer looking at a static past, but a fluid, shifting record of human movement. Every new discovery forces a rewrite of the foundations we once took for granted. The simple, linear tales of the past have dissolved under the weight of genetic proof. We see now that the human story is rarely a straight line. It is a complex, tangled web of arrivals, adaptations, and disappearances that we are only beginning to trace. Science has stripped away the comfort of the old myths, leaving us with a raw, honest look at the cycles of life that preceded our own. The past is not a closed book. It is a living, breathing archive that changes every time we find a new way to listen to what the Earth has kept. We are finally learning that the truth is never as simple as it seems.